Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shae and Huda. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. When you think of the messy times in your life, what did you do? Retreat and hide, or share with the world what was going on? Most of us try to hide our mess from everyone else, yet it's the mess that actually unites us. It's where we find common ground from what each other has been through. Today, I had the honor to connect with Huda Alvi, who is a real estate investor, founder of The Wealthy Women, and co-founder of a badass women tour company called The Girls Trip. Every venture and endeavor holds women to the forefront, making it her mission to empower women to feel worthy, wealthy, and world-class. Huda and I get into the mess that happens in this beautiful thing that we call life, while still navigating building businesses, creating impact, and financial freedom, all the while discovering who we really are when all of our titles in life are stripped away. I know that I've said on the podcast before that I could go Joe Rogan with this person, and I'm going to say it again, because when people are willing to share their stories, who are complete badasses, who are strong, who have gone through a lot, it's really hard to cram and have a conversation in under an hour, even 30 minutes around their journey. And Huda, welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. You are certainly one of those women, and I'm so grateful that you are here today to have an awesome conversation.
I'm ready to get this started. Thank you for having me.
I love it. You know, we were starting to talk offline about when I was thinking of who do I want to have come on for the Freedom CEO podcast. This isn't just a podcast on business, entrepreneurship, health, wellness, but really around people who in these different areas of their life have gone out of their way to seek freedom in these areas. Whether it's in a relationship, a marriage, within a culture, within business, within finances. And you come to that top of mind for me as a woman in general that really is embodying what it means to truly be free in all areas of life. And so I would love to talk about your story, your journey. And, you know, the beautiful thing really is that it's not linear, right? It's not just one way. It's not been easy. There's a lot of messiness. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain in order to come out to the other side of creating this beautiful life. And one for you that I think anyways, like from the outside looking in, embodies this essence of freedom. So let's do it. Tell me.
Yeah, you know, I feel like sometimes you get so caught up with the end result that when you brought up the messiness, I almost felt like my heart kind of skipped a beat, because I feel like for the last 2 years, my life has changed so drastically that, and I'm going to say this, like, I'm still getting therapy for this, because I truly believe that, you know, when something drastic and earth-shattering happens in your life, regardless of the external outcome, it takes a really long time to heal the brokenness and the internal and the inside work. And I'm saying this because I didn't think we were going to start off here, but you said, you know, the messiness, and it wasn't just messy. It was a very, very hard and dark chapter of my life that got me to where I am now, whatever, in whatever sense that may be. But yeah, it just brought me back to that. And I realized there's still so much healing and
Mhm.
work that I need to do to probably embrace that dark chapter more than I already have. I think I've done the external work. I think I've put that darkness to work for me to go chase my dreams, to never be in that position again, or to, you know, really invest in myself from a mental and spiritual level, which I really, really have, Shae. Like, when we have these conversations, I think it's so easy to be like, well, how did you get here and what did you do? But like, man, like the work that you have to put in when you're like on your floor crying, when there's no hope and you're just so devastated that you not only can't get out of your bed, but you just literally think there's no hope. I've
Mhm.
been there and I didn't ever think I would be there, but having gone through that, it's just, there's such a deep level of respect for what I've gone through for myself. And I
Mhm.
think that's what changed in 2 years. It wasn't even just getting into real estate and finance, and all of those things are so great. I'm getting emotional. Um, but I think I've really found respect for myself for what I have been through. And I think that's like the true kind of like the path to self love, this big thing that we talk about, self love. Where does it come from? It comes
Right.
from that messy, that hurt, right? That develops you into who you are today. So I wanted to just say that because when you said that, I was like, oh my God, it's kind of brought back old memories.
It's interesting as I hear you say that, you've been able to look at this and respect yourself. There's other phrases, or terminology that people might, for me, I translate and relate it to where it can be the shadow work,
Mm,
right? Like it's like looking deep within. And in order to really evolve as who you are today and to grow to the next step, to you have to embrace it all.
yeah,
Not just the good, the easy times, the happier times, but you really have to look back in your life and you have to acknowledge what has happened. There's a level of acceptance, but not pretending that it's not there. Like that's why I say like embracing what we call like the shadow work, like the darker side, the harder side, the messy side, because it's in the mess, it's in the dark, it's under the pressure that actually the beauty gets created. If you do the work to heal, which you're actively doing as you're mentioning, then it pushes you forward and you start growing through that. And oftentimes that result is beautiful. I think about diamonds, for example, and how diamonds are made, right? Like diamonds are only as beautiful and as shiny and as glamorous and valuable as they are by going through an immense amount of pressure in the darkness for a very long time.
absolutely. Completely.
And even a butterfly analogy too, I use that oftentimes and it's very real, right? Where the caterpillar going into the cocoon and there's all that darkness. And in that time, you are birthing, you are merging and becoming a whole new being, a whole new entity. And for anybody to come in and help you as you're trying to break out of that cocoon and the butterfly is trying to get out with its wings, having somebody come and help you or help the butterfly get out damages the wings and actually disables them. And they don't have the strength to fly properly for the rest of their lives. That for me is doing that inner work. When you're like in that cocoon, you could stay in that darkness, you can stay in that place. And a lot of people can and do. But I've always, you and I have not known each other for, I don't know, a very long time, but I think I've probably known you for what, like 6 years,
I
five
think
years,
longer. Yeah.
longer, maybe longer. And actually the first time, and this is what I always love when I meet people like yourself, where we didn't meet because of a business relation. We didn't meet because of a transaction or at an event. literally, like, you sent me a message and we met up to talk about impact, to talk about human rights, to talk about how we can be changing the world and how we could be aligned or collaborate in that together. And that for me is I just love conversations like that, as you know. Like, I think they're just, it's part of why I'm here, and it's like my purpose. But I think for you, and looking at your journey and your story, you've been so open and vulnerable of what kind of doing this, like the roller coaster of life, where most people do that behind closed doors. You've taken your time to do that behind closed doors, but then you've shared it with people to go, yeah, this is the real, this is the raw, this is me, this is the hurt, this is the pain. And for those listening, they might not know you. I would love if you're open to just share a bit of your journey of whatever you want to share, because you've been through a lot. You've gone through a lot.
I think a lot of us have. Yeah. To sum it up, I think we just got into the depth of the messiness, which I love. And I wanted to touch on your word of impact, because that is how we met. Well, I don't even know where to start. It's a long kind of journey, but I guess to sum it up, I would say, last 3 years have been probably the most impactful years, and for myself as a woman, and actually growing at a personal level than anything else. And that's
Mhm.
now translated in my business, which is what I feel that I'm getting recognized a lot more for. But it's
Mhm.
really the personal journey that got me there. And that was in 2020, going through a separation with my husband. And I don't even want to say separation. The reality and the truth is that I was actually just kind of left. My husband decided to end our marriage out of nowhere. Like, it was 3 days before COVID, I think. And all of a sudden, I think he was going through some dark, deep chapters in his life as a man. And I think that this midlife crisis is real, because I've experienced it with my husband, and we are back together. But now, when I look back in hindsight to see all that kind of came to transpire at that time in March 2020, like right in the middle of COVID, in the middle of the pandemic, my husband decided he didn't want to be with us. He didn't want the marriage anymore. And for someone that's invested majority of the past like 10 years, really putting the marriage and the relationship to the forefront of everything that I do, I have always been an impact driven woman. I've always been someone that has been really honest and true to myself. And so my marriage was kind of like this pedestal of success. To be honest, it was, I had gone through a divorce, and previously, prior to my husband, I was 18 when I got married. I was a teenage, I had a teen pregnancy. I was 19 when I was pregnant with my daughter. And that marriage lasted only 3 years. I had both of my kids, and I was in an extremely unhappy marriage. And when I was going through that divorce, I had met my husband. So he was really like my rock from
Mhm.
the age of like 21 all the way up until 35. And that's a long time to be with someone. And we lasted all those years dating. He has a child, so we were also a blended family. We dated for 5 years. We got married. And after we got married, from what I thought, life was good. I was invested in my marriage. I was building my business and doing all of these things. But, you just really never know how things can unfold. And that was my 2020. So when my husband asked for a divorce and a separation, my world was rocked. Like, everything that I thought was true, and that I believed in, like true values, just kind of like taken away from me. So I feel like I was not only questioning all this stuff that I had built, but I was questioning things like faith, questioning
Mhm.
things like value, questioning things like my worth, which, now that I look back, it's such a beautiful lesson that I had, maybe like many other women, put my worth into the value of my marriage and someone else. And I would have probably continued to do that as long as we were married, unless and until that breakdown came. So
Right.
100%, I was extremely devastated. However, 2 years later, when I look back, I'm so grateful that that happened. But when I was going through that dark chapter, I remember my friends kind of being like, trust me, you're going to get out of this. So trust me, it's going to be fine. And haven't you seen last month you were here, but this month you were here? I couldn't see none of that. Like, honestly, I was just like, I don't see none of that. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm still crying every day. I'm still broken every single day. I don't know how I'm going to make it around. So just for reference, that's sort of my story. I start my story from my rebirth at the age of 35 because everything before that is on my Instagram. You know, it's there. I ran a business, I got divorced, I got remarried, and I shared that very openly because I am South Asian. I'm a diverse woman. I'm a Muslim woman to have to go through a divorce and then get remarried again and then to have stepchildren and be a blended family. That was already my hurdle. I thought that was my story, you know, for so long. I
Yeah.
did. And
Yeah.
till the separation happened, that completely, I really do feel it's a rebirth because I'm no longer the same Huda I was before that, and I'm a completely different person. It's 100% an identity shift. I'm grateful for it happening. Now, when we were talking about the beginning of this conversation, the emotional mess, I still have to heal from that because it was so devastating and so quick for all the changes it caused in my life. I'm still trying to cope with that, to be honest. I'm still a woman. I'm still hurt. I still went through all of that, but I've learned to take my time to understand myself and to come out of that chapter in my life to make a bigger impact and to do more in my life.
There's a lot that you just shared from, you know, when you're being like 18 and being married, then becoming a mom, and all of these culturally as well, right? Around religion, but then also just like country culture. There's so much that's wrapped around identity. And oftentimes we can be maybe not even realizing it, but either be kind of imprisoned to that or within this is how life is supposed to be. This is how I should. I should be married. I should stay married. I should have this job. I should this. I should that. Versus really like, what does Huda want? Like, what do I want? Right? What does Shae want? And finding that own liberation within self to then create. In these like past couple of years of being in it, being in the hard, being in the dark, being in this separation time, and you're talking about a rebirth, is part of that for you finding a new identity, creating a new identity for yourself? Is it needing to let go of past stories and narratives of how you thought life was going to be versus like how you want to build it now?
Yeah. So when we talk about identity shift, I remember being on a call with my therapist right after my separation. I got myself a therapist right away. I had done so much inner work that I sort of knew the steps to what I had to do, but
Mhm.
I was not embodying it. So in my mind, I was already there. I'm like, okay, I got to get therapy. Okay, I have to hit the gym. Okay, I have to eat clean. This is a new start. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be okay. But my emotional capacity was way behind where my mind was. And I was having a really hard time catching up with what I had to do and what I knew would get me to a better state. I remember telling myself, I'm gonna rewire this bitch. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna, I know exactly what to do. I've watched tons of YouTube videos. I've done so many personal development courses. I know exactly what this is. And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna reverse it and I'll be fine.
Right.
Within a month, within 3 months, it took 6 months, 9 months, and I still found myself not just waking up and trying to just live another day without my husband, without my marriage, and this whole identity I created for myself. So I remember my therapist saying that you have a new identity and you don't know it yet, and you're going to have to go find it, actively look for what this new person, without your marriage, without your kids, without your life, who are you without all of these things? And that's when I learned the term detachment and how attached we are to things in our life that make up our identity. My
Right.
marriage, my
Right.
husband, my
Right.
family, my business. But if you remove all of that from you, who are you?
Yeah.
Couldn't answer that question.
Mm.
I think I understand it a lot better, but my new identity now is also attached to this new version of me and this new business of mine and this new real estate career. So I'm still attached, but I think those attachments now fuel me because they have to do with just me versus my husband or my marriage, and those things are all important to me. But I think I'm still building my new identity. I think we're forever building our new identity, right?
Yeah.
As we go through phases of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you evolve, and it's interesting that you bring up like detachment, because I've spoken to different women throughout different periods of life. Like even you hear this often, like when either a woman does get divorced or somebody even enters into retirement, or their kids, if you're a parent like you are, and their kids are 18, 19, and they go off to university, all of a sudden, more commonly, I think with women than with men, although men usually go through a midlife crisis, and that's their identity of like, who am I? What am I doing? What is my purpose? Whereas for a lot of females that are moms, right, when their kids go off to university and no longer need them, it's like, well, what is my purpose now? Where is my value now? And I've had these conversations with women before of going, you are incredible and you are valuable and you are worthy and you are enough outside of being a wife, being a husband, being a mom, being a daughter, being a CEO, being, we're both realtors, being a realtor, all of these titles, but your
Mhm.
titles are not you. There are things you do, and some of them are gifts, like being a mom for yourself, right? Like that is a gift. But if something happens and that changes, you still exist. And it's like, you're like, who are you? And understanding like your value is not defined by certain titles that may be attributed to you. And that, I think, for a lot of people is really challenging to actually try to detach from, because we spend so much of our life within that identity.
Well, even for yourself, right? Moving to Costa Rica and being in the jungle, going from Toronto,
Yeah.
that's a new identity, right? So
Sure.
who are you in the jungle? I mean, who are you outside of Toronto? And when it was COVID and you couldn't go out and you couldn't see your friends and you couldn't do all of those things that you wanted to show to the world you are, who are you in those four walls, right? And
Mhm.
I think when people went through a loss of a loved one, a separation, a divorce, a loss of a child, or losing their jobs, all that COVID period, what it did to us and who we came out after this, we all
Sure.
went through an identity crisis. I really
Definitely.
believe that. I think we all went through an identity crisis. And going back to midlife crisis, yeah, I mean, now that husband and I are back together, and when I ask him about the midlife crisis and what men go through when they are in a rut and they are in the deep and they are going, it's sometimes these extreme levels of decision making that forever kind of either falls into regret or remorse or
Mhm.
healing or growth. And what it did for my husband, and I think for both of us, he grew as a person and he grew for himself, not for me, not for the kids, not for a marriage, for himself, to understand and realize that his midlife crisis needed to be healed. And it came out in the way of a divorce and a separation. But I did want to point out for the women listening or men listening, I think when you're in a long-term relationship, what I often see and what a lot of my social media used to discuss and talk about before was like this beautiful relationship and how to always, be honest and truthful. So when I lost my relationship, I felt like I was not only not worthy and valuable, but I had nothing to offer because look at me, I'm such a failure. I talked about all these great things, but look at my life, it fell apart. So I kind of just like vanished. I got off all social media. I deleted my Instagram. I had a very hard time speaking to people. I couldn't hold myself at a level of who I saw myself as before. So I never thought I would ever be able to even come close to the person I was before. I just so many feelings and emotions that I've never experienced, like
Sure.
lack of confidence, the lack of like how even how I looked changes, the way my face changed and my body changed, all of these different things. So yeah, it's so much deeper, this identity that we hold on to. And I'm still exploring and I still want to explore. But when we did get back together and when I did create this huge shift within myself of this new person, our marriage changed and our relationship has also changed. It's no longer what it was before because I think when you stand in front of another person, your parents, your friends, when they can hold you in regard for the transformation you've made, they hold a very different place in their heart for you now because they've seen you grow. And I think that's what happened with my husband. He sees me differently and I see him differently. And I'm no longer at the mercy of just my relationship, my marriage, and my husband. I am my own individual person. And it took 35 years to get there. Even though I thought I was independent and free and made my own decisions, I still was attached. And for the first time in my life, I can confidently say, no matter what falls apart around me, that I will be okay. That
And it's so beautiful. How empowering to feel that, and messy to go through it, and this is where I look at you and I'm like, I listen to what you're sharing just even today, and I go, how human of you. Like, how human of you. And I think so many people forget that there's so many other people out there that have very similar stories. It's not, of course, identical, but having a life that outwardly, and it's not even that it wasn't. Things literally can change in an instant. Even in these past couple of years, we've seen how many people have just unfortunately taken their own lives. And you see on social media and you hear from family and friends that like they seemed fine and everything was okay. Like mental health is a real thing. And it's not necessarily that this is in your circumstance, but I'm just, I want people to understand and hear that it is a human experience to be doing really great one day and you can have life all good and together, and tomorrow can bring something that can dramatically change a situation, whether it's in your finances, within your career, within your marriage, right? Like, and things can happen. And it's when your vulnerability and your courage, real deep courage and bravery to show up on a platform where you have thousands upon thousands of people to share your story, I know has been such an anchor of inspiration to so many men and women. I mean, or should I say that backwards? You speak more, more, I think women are like in your platform, but even men, like you share often about some of the stuff that your husband has gone through. And we forget how human we actually really are. Yeah.
I was going to say in the last like couple of weeks, for some reason, like you were saying, people have given up their lives and there's this whole mental health kind of crisis that has come about since COVID or even before that. But there's like some really big, powerful influencers that I've followed and business leaders that have sort of given up on their businesses or what we thought drove them and made them so successful because deep down inside it wasn't. So I think we just, because of social media, again, it's so imperative to show up real and authentic because there's so many people watching and already making preconceived judgment on your success and on what you show to the world. So yes, 100% we want to show our accomplishments and so forth, but it's also vitally important to have this podcast in place and have this, authentic stories of vulnerability, divorce, separation, death, loss being shared equally. And I was going to get to like now in the last 2 years, I speak a lot about, and I'm building my business. I'm a real estate agent and a real estate investor. So I speak a lot about obviously my story, but how that changed my financial future. And I'm so committed to sharing that with women, but that is like a sliver of my story because
Mhm.
that all can, like you said, go away and I can start something else another day, or I can be doing something else. But if it wasn't for that happening or that instance taking place in my life, it wouldn't have transpired all this. And regardless of what comes, the financial success or the external success, that is just a reward for being yourself, because it's a reward of hard work, it's a reward, but those things don't really bring you happiness. They don't, because
Totally.
they're just things. I can't say money bought me a house, great, but a house doesn't make me happy, because a home is what makes me happy when I have my family there and dinners around the dining table. So I think there's so many levels to crack here, but we are living in a world where, and especially me, when I talk about real estate and finance, it's one of those things where people just want to be rich and want to be wealthy and want all these things because our lifestyle has changed. And you see so many, even my kids, they're teenagers, and they talk about wanting financial freedom and wanting to buy Lamborghinis and Ferraris and um branded clothes and all these different things. And it's because of what they see. And if all we see is this platform of just things and materialistic things, I think we're missing the point, right? That's a reward of our hard work and what we do. So I didn't think personally that our conversation was going to go so personal, and I'm loving it, because most of the time I'm talking about real estate, and I'm sure you too, right? But this is where, like, if anyone's listening, this is where the real information is. Like, you want to know how to become rich, you want to know how to become financially free, you want to learn how to become confident. It all comes down to the mess, like the stuff that we're talking about right now, the identity, the mess, the anger, the therapy, the mental health crisis, how COVID changed us, and just these really important topics.
Well, it starts here, right? It starts with you and it starts within. And I say this all the time, like, freedom is not just about having a certain number in your bank account. Yes, money can bring you freedom, but it doesn't bring you happiness. And true freedom starts from the inside, because you might have all of the stability, you might have all of the things, you might be able to go travel whenever you want, which is super important to women like you and me. We both love traveling, and we're going to talk about that too. But if what's happening on the inside, if you don't wake up every day feeling free and from here, you're never going to be happy with what's going on around you. And that for me is part of what real success is, and that's also real freedom, is like waking up every day knowing, like, I'm creating and I'm contributing and I'm building a life that I love by design, and that it doesn't matter the number in my bank account, how it fluctuates up and down, because if it's not here first for me, nothing else matters. Like, your heart, your mind, your soul need to be in alignment first, and then you focus on the outward.
Yeah, I mean, let's actually ask, right? How many of us feel free? Like Freedom
Mm.
CEO, how many of us look free but are not free, right? We've got responsibilities, we've got bills, we've got relationships that we are in, yet we're still not free because we're too afraid and scared to go out on our own. And I see this a lot because when I started sharing my story, the amount of messages and DMs of women that are stuck in
Mhm.
this like world of their life that they can't get out of. But I would have never thought, when I looked at them, I didn't even think, right? But the inside, the internal story of what's actually happening, I was shocked. I'm like,
Mm.
but I thought like I was just like, I thought you just went here and I saw, yeah, I'm suffering. I'm silently suffering. And there's so many of us that are not free from
Mhm.
all of these things that are happening in our life. So true freedom is priceless, and it has nothing to do with money. I mean, not nothing. Maybe, I preach this, financial stability is really important. At the
Yeah.
same time, it doesn't make up the entire box, right? In order to be free, you need to have the right friends, you need to have the right relationships, you need to be doing something you are actually love if you hate going into work every day, you need to figure out a new endeavor or a new job that will excite you. So there's so many things that come into this freedom kind of word.
There it is. And I as you're talking, I'm going again, it goes back to like, it starts like on the inwards and our thoughts and like what we're focusing on. And Nelson Mandela says it best. He lived so much of his life in jail, in prison, without physical freedom. But he said, you will never be able to take my mind. And as long as I have my mind, I live every day free. Even though he was captive in a cell for year after year, and he was filled with some of the most love this planet, in your and my lifetime anyways, has ever seen.
And look at the impact he created in a jail cell. Like,
yes. Yes. And changing the nation of not just like the country of South Africa, but Africa in general, but how that's had a ripple effect on the world. And he's a very, I think, good, tangible example for people of looking what it actually means to be free with yourself first. And it starts in the mind, what you're filling your mind with. What music are you listening to? What are you reading? The people that you're listening to, right? You talk about the circle of friends, the relationships that you're in, you cleaning up your own house internally. And then you can continue to build that foundation, right? To actually be able to enjoy some of those external, maybe freedoms, right? Of being able to travel, having the house, having the business and all of that. But again, if you're not free on the inside, driving that car, the Lamborghini, that Ferrari doesn't bring you any more pleasure because you're not free on the internal.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I'm late to the game. I read it last year. And there's one part of the book that I always think about. And he talks about our mind being either a garden or being sort of like left to die, where the plants and the grass is, just frail and yellow and there's weeds growing. And if you're able to look at your mind as this beautiful garden where you're planting the seeds and eventually the flowers will bloom and it's nice and sunny there. It's a good place to live. And you're living in your mind 90% of the time. So if that place is not a good place to live, you have to change, like we talked about, you have to change this, right? It all starts from here. So, yeah.
Okay, so I want to go into the real estate. I want to shift gears just a tad because I think to people maybe who have followed you over the years, I say you kind of played the wild card of getting into real estate. But when I look at you, I'm not surprised that you did get your license. As you know, I've been in the industry for a long time. I've been licensed for over 12 years myself, and my father's been in real estate for 38 years. So I've grown up in it. And everyone is getting their real estate license these days. Right? I feel like 5 out of 5 people are a realtor. And that's not a literal statistics, but that's kind of what it feels like, especially to somebody who's been in the industry for a long time. I think people get into the industry for all kinds of wrong reasons. And they also have a lot of misconceptions around the industry of how easy it might be, how quick it might be to make money. And so I often will tell people when people ask me, oh, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, I usually tell them, don't do it. And I'm not sure if I said this to you when you and I sat down in Costa Rica, but
you did it. You did it.
Yeah. It's a very real thing that I say to people for many different reasons. It's neither here nor there right now, but you played this wild card. And although I was surprised, I looked at it and go, yeah, it makes sense. She would be really good at this. And before I tell you why I think you would be good in the industry, I would love for you to share why become a realtor. It's not easy as you're learning. But why? Why did you want to get into the industry?
Freedom.
Okay.
Impact. And to help myself. I got into real estate because I was so, I felt like I was just so oblivious to the real wealth of this world, not just monetarily, but like the education, why the state of the economy matters, why the dollar matters, why the politicians matter, why are we living the way we are? Why are some people rich? Why are some people poor? What is the middle class? Like, I had all these things that I didn't learn in school. So when I got a taste of it, I just felt like I was learning this new information, downloading all of this stuff that I just never knew before. So the difference was I was very passionate about that information because I wanted it for myself.
Right.
So when I learned it for myself, I was equally as passionate as providing it back. So I never became a real estate agent that was really gung ho and trying to sell people real estate. I just really wanted to help people understand what real estate really is,
Right.
what an agent's job really is, why, if you're buying a piece of asset, why you should be buying that and where you should be buying that. And you're right. I think a lot of people in real estate, and I want to talk more about this, that look and just automatically assume that you have a lot of money or that you should be driving a really nice car, you should be wearing. And I think our industry is first impressions first. You got to look the part, you got to look great, but they are not imperative to being successful in the business. And I share this because if you asked me 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if I walked around with my Louis bag, which I don't have anymore, I probably was the prime example of someone that exuded success externally. But internally, we were house poor and we went through a separation because of our financial difficulties. So
Right.
look at how far those two things are. And now that I do have real estate and I do invest in real estate, I still drive around my Honda Accord. If
Right.
you asked me 5 years ago, it would have been so different. So my mind has completely shifted of what wealth and money is. And real estate is one of those industries where so much of the focus is on sale and transactions that if you truly want to be successful at real estate, you got to start understanding what real estate really is and what it does and why it's important, because then you can go and share with people the knowledge that you know. And
Right.
once they start knowing that you understand things and you know things, you're not just there after the sale, that's what's going to make you successful in the industry. And when I started, I became an agent because I really enjoyed learning all the information. I didn't care for, I mean, sure, it was the freedom to, I can make whatever I want, but how many real estate agents make a lot of money? Not a lot. A lot of
Yeah.
them don't even sell homes. You know this. I know this. I've been in the industry for less than 3 years, and I've seen so many agents kind of just sitting on the sideline. So it's not for everyone. And you're right. Not everyone should do it because it's not a lottery ticket that's just going to get you to from point A to point B in a few short years. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen for everyone.
Totally. So, okay, let me ask you, because you've said this a couple of times around what is real estate. And I would love to know, like, what is real estate for you? What does it mean? Like, what is a realtor to you?
Well, they're two different questions. Real estate to me is just freedom.
Okay.
It's bypassing what they've told us how to live, how to grow up, to go get a job, to save that money, to go get a pension. And my husband's a government employee. He's a firefighter. So I see that. And they've told us all of this and it makes sense. But why are so many people seeking that freedom lifestyle now? Why are so many people having that 9 to 5 and starting side businesses and side hustles? Because we all want freedom, and that freedom is not money. It's actually time. That's our biggest currency that we're exchanging. We're exchanging time.
100%.
Right? So that's what real estate to me is. Realtor is an opportunity to help someone understand the value of what they own and how much they can do with it. That's where I love talking about with people.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with anything that you just said. To add to that, though, as well, I think real estate a lot, and I mean, freedom, it's wrapped up in this, but I want to just extract this a little, is not being dependent, right? There's this codependency. What you just described around pensions and government and 9 to 5 and a paycheck. These are all conditioning systems to be complacent with what really the system will allow you to live and how you can live. Because within those parameters, you can only afford a certain amount and quality of life. You can afford to live in a certain place, and you're confined to these parameters. Now there are people, and I'm sure you guys are doing this, like with your husband, that could be quote unquote like in the system in a traditional job. And if they're wise and start to learn around financial literacy and how money operates, you can still be in as a firefighter and grateful for his service. Like, that's an amazing job to be doing, and also for the community. But you can be taking that and having your money start working for you and investing that. And if something were to jeopardize his job, compromise his job, if he got sick, you're now not in a position where you're dependent on the system that is holding you or feeding you. So real estate for me also expands into that, not just like the freedom component of financial freedom, but then it's this dependency, this independent that you create for yourself, that generational wealth as well, right? That gets passed on. But I think oftentimes when you hear financial freedom, even generational wealth, people just think money. But it's like, yes, and that money allows you to do everything I just said, but really breaking that down, going, I'm self-reliant. If something were to happen tomorrow, like to me, to my partner, we have other ways of having money and making money and having our money work for us versus trading our time for money as well.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, and Robert Kiyosaki talks about this all the time, right? The idea of the codependency. Yeah, that you're dependent. They make you dependent on that paycheck because it pays your bills. It gives you. They don't want you to go out there and do all of these things, because then who's going to work and who's going to kind of follow? But if you are, and I think a lot of this generation is kind of after that, right? Like we are so much more poised for greatness now because of the information and education and conversations like these, where wealth and generational wealth, these terms are not necessarily associated with money. They're actually, like we said, associated with freedom. How do we get there? How do we have that job, but still make sure that we have some sort of passive income coming through? And more people want to leverage that. They want to learn more about that. And I think real estate is that perfect avenue to kind of educate yourself on, so you can start learning all of these little things so you can have more freedom. And, my father's had a job. My husband's had a job for a long time. I think jobs are great. They give you the base start of how to learn from the big guys, and you need that job. Like even in our relationship, my husband has a job and I'm the entrepreneur. So it works. And that's majority of the makeup of this community where we live, right? Most people have work, but they're still constantly sort of starting side projects, side businesses, online money, so that when they decide to let you go, or 20 years from now, they take your job away, what are you going to do? You have to have a safety net, right?
Or shut off your pension, because that is a real situation that is happening in Canada that a lot of Canadians are not aware about. They're literally talking about
your pension too when you retire.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it's like, then what? Like even I think of people our age, never mind like, my mom worked for Air Canada for 25 years. So my mom has a pension. And I keep telling her, I'm like, you need to literally deplete all of that, because they're talking about turning off that switch. Never mind people our age or your husband's age that are still paying in. But what if when your husband's my mom's age, that might not even be there, literally. So it's like cool that you have this cushion right now, but you have to start thinking about other ways of how your money can be making you money right now versus sitting in a savings account. Because at 1%, barely 2% in the bank, versus taking that money and investing it and making money right now, that's the retraining of the brain that they don't want you to do.
Well, I was just going to say, like, how long, I remember from the time I grew up till now, like even my parents, the concept of saving, look how much they brainwash you. Like there is no such thing as investing. It's this new word that's been popping up for the last 10 years when people are like, don't save, invest. I didn't know that. There's still so many people probably listening in that, you have your money in the bank account, but it's not in the bank account. It's not there.
Totally.
You see it on your screen, you see the number, but have you gone and checked if that money is in your bank account? It's not, because then the banks go and take your money and lend it out somewhere else and make their own money. I mean, this is a
Totally.
deeper conversation, but the concept of saving is just brainwashed for us to think that that's the only way for us to eventually retire or have money in the bank account, that, $50 that you save every single week, or that few $100s that you end up putting aside. But saving is not going to get you to freedom. Investing is going to get you to freedom, whatever that freedom means for you. That could be a vacation. That could be retiring your parents. That could be selling off your house, moving to another country, whatever freedom means to you.
100%, 100%. And again, it puts your dependency on yourself and not outsourcing your trust to a system that we're seeing over and over again in different areas in different ways, that it is seriously broken, So, okay, so let me ask you this, because you talk about having the Louis bag, but you were house poor. You're now in real estate. You've gone from owning no homes to, I believe now in less than 12 months, you purchased 5 homes. Is that right?
Actually.
6. Yeah. Okay. So from 0 to 6 in under 12 months, which can be very daunting, overwhelming for a lot of people. But there's creative ways of doing this. So I would love for you to shed some light on that for people listening. And it doesn't have to be 6 homes, right? Like you don't have to go from 0 to 6 in 12 months, but
I would suggest
that. Sure. But that journey, that concept of going like, we were house poor and now I have 6 properties and I did it in a very short period of time. What was the secret? What were you doing? Or how did you do it?
Oh my God. The power of investing. That's all I can say. I didn't save my money. I took little bit of money that I had after we sold our house after the separation, and I invested it back into real estate, which was my first pre-construction property. My pre-construction property, so a couple of things. So number one, partnerships. Okay. You can't do it alone. I didn't have the money. So creative ways. People ask me this all the time. How did you get to 6 properties? What is the secret? What should I be doing? One, if you don't have the friends that might be interested in something like this, but deep down inside that you want financial freedom, you want freedom, and you want to do something, go find the right people. You'd be surprised how many people would be interested in purchasing real estate with you if you just put the word out there. Because there's another person that's equally in the same situation that A, doesn't have the money, 2, might not have the credit, 3, might not be able to get mortgage approval, and 4, has never done it before. So they need someone to be with, right? So one, partnerships. That 3 of my properties, I can't even remember, but I think 3 or 4 of them were with partnerships with friends and siblings and other people, actually, where we thought the same and we said, let's partner up.
Yep.
The other way is through lines of credit, which they don't teach you. Lines of credit is a great way to borrow money from the banks that's not yours and use it towards something. So we did a lot of our renovations and our flips through lines of credit, which was not our own money. I mean, why would I go use my money when I can use the bank's money? So that's one. No one ever taught me that.
And not to interrupt you, but your line of credit is 90% of the time the interest rate is lower than what your mortgage rate would be. So from a borrowing standpoint as well, it's even better. And after a year of you having your line of credit out, oftentimes you can renegotiate your interest rate to be lower. I literally just did mine about like 7 months ago. I just talking to my banker. I'm like, listen, I want a lower rate. What can you do? And he's like, yeah, you know what? Let me see. If you don't ask, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. For starters, the worst, he's going to come back and go, no, sorry, we can't do anything. Okay, fine. At least I asked. But that is another little tip for people. Like, yes, 100% you want to borrow and use other people's money versus your own. But it's also going to be cheaper than if you were to go and get a mortgage out on one of your properties, taking out like a second mortgage, right? The line of credit is usually a lower interest rate.
And what they also do is you do a good job keeping up that line of credit. You take out money from there. Let's say you go and renovate your property, then you put the money back. They see you doing that, they'll give you more. They'll give you more money. And having that kind of, credibility with with the bank and these lending partners that we talk about that I never knew what the relationship was. Like Shae, when I'm telling you, I didn't know what interest rate was or what, inflation was or what a mortgage, like my husband dealt with all that. I had no visibility in it. I didn't care for it. I didn't want to learn about it. I didn't know about it because it just seemed so daunting. But now that I do know it, one of my goals and mission is to teach this like basic education that we should all be given in school that we're not, so that we can get better. So yeah, going from 1 to 6 property was through partnerships, was through lines of credit, was through borrowing loans from the bank. What else did we do? By that time, one of the properties made money after we flipped it. So one of my biggest success was taking a property that was undervalued and it was right at the cusp of COVID, right timing. We put renovation money into it. This is how we started. We didn't have that much money. We renovated the property and it sold for a ridiculous amount. So when we got those profits back and we paid people back that we borrowed money from, because we didn't really have money to put down on this house, we only had like 8-10%, but we borrowed money from other people. And when we finally got that money that we actually made in profit, I realized that nothing changed other than what I learned. Like, I didn't want to go buy anything. I didn't want to go spend that money. I was the same person before I had it and after I had it. But now what I did have was a new appreciation of, wait, you take this and you grow it and then you multiply it. So that's what happened with me. I was so invested and kind of addicted to the process of growth and real estate that I just wanted to take that, and right away I bought the second property with it. Then I went and invested in a third property and then invested in a fourth property, went through an aggressive savings plan. We looked at our finances every single week. How much money is coming in? Okay, let's take this money, put it here. It was an active plan. You can't get from 1 to 2 or even start investing unless and until you're willing to actively sit down and look at your money and see where it's going, what you want to do with it, and have some help. Have some people around you that are on the same kind of level as you. I changed my circle a little bit. I started hanging out and educating myself and being in environments where I'd learn more instead of just, putting my time somewhere else. So it's a complete shift, right? Your circle changes, your network changes, your education level changes. I don't listen to music. I only listen to podcasts. I read. I'm always working. So that's bound to create something, some level of success.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. And those are like amazing tips. And this is why I say to people, you either make an excuse or you make it happen. And instead of going like, what? Start asking how. Like, how can I come up with the funds? How can I make this happen? And when you focus on that, it starts coming to you. And like you said, putting something into action, asking people. And there's all kinds of people that are looking for good investment opportunities that might be in the same situation. And that's why I wanted to ask you. I just think it's so valuable for people to hear. You can go from 0 to 6 in a short period of time. And if you can do it, as much as I love you,
anyone can do it. Yeah, forget 0. We went from literally house poor to like a separation because of our finances and the stress and living this day-to-day paycheck life and not having enough money to sort of like breathe and do whatever we want. Even though I was an entrepreneur, my kind of, my finances fluctuated. I did make a lot of money during my, 20s, but I spent it all. I didn't buy real estate. I took vacations and all of that. And I wouldn't say I regret it, but I wish I was wiser to invest it because, the older that you get, the more risk averse you get. And I talk to so many women that are now kind of leveraging and saying, well, I saw you did it. I feel like I can do it. What should I do? And the first thing is like, literally making the decision that you want to do it, versus, yeah, I don't know, but I don't, but, and that's, so I don't usually, I don't rebuttal when people say, but I can, or I don't, because it's more of a deeper, it's more than just that, right? It's the fear, it's, having the right mindset, it's having the right people in your life. There's so many things, but yeah, I mean, going to 0 to 6 has taught me so many lessons. Oh my God, the market all flipped on us. So no, did I make money on everything? Am I like filthy rich? If that's the question, no. Have I learned a lot in the last 12 months? Yes. Have I learned how to, have I learned what real estate can do, what my kids can, like, have I educated myself? That's like the most valuable lesson or anything that I've learned out of doing this in the last 2 years is the education and my level of expertise. It's
I love
completely
that.
shifted.
I love that. I have to ask you this as well. We're going to shift. I'm going to shift. We're still going to be in business, but before I let you go, I want to talk about what you've just announced is back. If you follow Huda, then you know, but the girls' trip is back. And you're on here, so I don't need to explain what it is. I'll let you share what is the girls' trip and why are you bringing it back?
So I'll tell you our elevator pitch. The Girls Trip is a badass female tour company that allows and empowers women to travel to bucket list destinations through a payment plan.
Yeah.
We started the company because we pay bills on a monthly basis. We have liabilities. We pay for our car. We pay for everything that most likely doesn't make us too happy. But paying for a vacation on a monthly basis, making it financially accessible to women and empowering them to see the world more so then in turn they can be more powerful beings has always been the forefront of the girls trip. We did 8 trips before COVID to Bali and Peru and Morocco and Mexico. COVID shut us down for a while. We went through our own pivots in our life, myself and my sister. I went to real estate. She had both her kids. Life went on. COVID left. Women started coming back. Are you starting? Are you starting? We want to travel. We want to travel. And we said, we have no choice. We got to bring it back. Everyone's asking for it. What could be better than that when people are asking you, right? So we started the company. We said we can't just let this go. It's a business we started to create experiences, which is what another element of me is like, I love, since I've discovered myself, I wholeheartedly like to make myself happy. And I find joy in bringing happiness to myself. I like to travel. I like to eat. I like to do these things, little things. And travel is one of those things that I think just makes all of us really happy. Looking at a sunset, you start thinking about what you want in life. You start changing your mindset. You meet someone new and you watch and you hear their story. You come back a little bit more grateful. You eat a little bit healthier when you go on vacation. You make that acai bowl because you want to take care of your body more. Travel just changes you.
Well, you'll appreciate this. One of my absolute favorite quotes in the world is, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel only read one page."
I love that quote.
I think it's Augustine that says that, but it's true because you're only getting one little sliver. And it's not just about the experience. That's also what you learn. You know, some of like my greatest teachers have been being in Israel for 3 weeks or going to India. I've been to India twice and to many different parts. And the things that I've learned culturally and religion and food and geography and even just demographics, right? Like within India alone, it's so diverse and different. And as much as you might read about that somewhere or have friends, you know, in Toronto that some are from Punjab, some are from like New Delhi or whatever, you don't really understand it until you go and you touch it, you see it, you feel it. And then on top of everything, the food, the experiences, the sunsets, all of what you're talking about. You know, I love it. Travel is such a huge part of me and my DNA and the importance of life and rejuvenating, coming up with new ideas, refreshing, releasing, de-stressing, all of these things. And so I saw that it was back. I was like, we got to talk about this because it's super exciting. And I love the structure that you provide. And for those of you guys who maybe haven't seen this is not just like, I'm going to go to like Costa Rica or go to Bali and I have this payment plan. Like the way, if you don't know Huda by now, she is all about the class and all about the lugs. Like this is going to be an experience to remember. The places that you're staying, to like how the travel and the accommodations that you're in, the food that you're eating are all 5-star, you know, and you really cultivate this beautiful experience that you make it affordable and approachable for anybody to be able to go on your trips.
Yeah, I mean, I travel to these destinations. I scope everything out. I look at our tour partners, make sure they're ethical, they're local, and we're trying our best to make sure our new partners and moving forward are more female based and women based, because that's who we are, right? We want women to travel, and yeah, so we really put all. Everything's an experience for us. We want people to leave feeling like they just had not just a trip, but they really came back as a different person. And we've had that. We've had women come back that moved to Costa Rica after, and we've had women that are lifelong friends. We've had so many incredible stories from our travels that it's been great. But I was going to say, you know what they say about India, right?
Well, there's a few things they say about India, so go ahead.
I was going to say, you going to India, like I want to backpack India. I've been dying. I want to. They say India's not somewhere you go to travel. India is somewhere you go to experience, because it's just a different level of travel. So wow, kudos to you. I'm sure that was a very eye-opening trip.
You know, I say often that India's a country that you will either absolutely love it or you will hate it. And the thought of India will turn you off for a very long time. In India, you will experience the extremes of everything in life, from extreme wealth with extreme poverty at the gate of that house, palace, really, whatever you want to kind of call it, but like that place, to the smells where you will smell the most beautiful, tasteful thing, to gut wrenching, like you want to instant vomit, to the colors. Like the colors are like the most extreme. I mean, it's a culture of extreme. It's also a country where there's like three major religions in the world that are there. You can't help but to go to India and feel something, no matter what your belief system is. And it is definitely a teacher. So yeah, you go through, and it's funny when you ask me that. This is what I know about India, what they say. That's why I said, well, it depends on what you're asking me.
What is it?
So people tell me that you need three things in India. You need a good horn, good brakes, and good luck. Because the driving itself in India, I've been told many times that it is like a river that's going downstream rushing. You don't ever pay attention to what's going on behind you, only what's in front of you. And this is why you need the good horn, the good brakes, and the good luck.
You didn't drive, did you?
I didn't drive, no.
Okay, good.
Although I think I could handle Delhi driving, but no, I did not drive. Yeah. Even when I was like over in Vietnam, like the traffic there and the craziness, I'm like, this is nothing compared to India. But I will tell you, Toronto traffic is way worse than Delhi. In Delhi, it's controlled chaos. For them, it makes sense. It's like if something's in the middle of the road, you just go around it. In Toronto, we wait for hours, right? We just wait. And so
That's
it's
true.
like, why would we do this? We go around. And it's like, for us, we just sit there, you know? So
when did you go to India?
I was there, I was there in 2008.
Okay.
And again in 2012, I want to say, like in and around that. Yeah.
The whole kind of.
So I was there. Well, I went to a lot of places. Like I've been to Varanasi, Amritsar, Agra, New Delhi, oh my gosh.
Bombay.
No,
Rajasthan?
no, Calcutta.
Calcutta. Okay.
I've been to the Punjab, and then I've been up in the mountains in a town called Sabatu. I've been to some of the traditional, like more popular places, you know, like Agra, Amritsar, go see the Taj Mahal type thing. But I've also seen places in India and things in India that a tourist or somebody backpacking would like never go to. I've gone both times to India to do work. And one of those times was through my organization Freedom, as you know, which fights human trafficking. So I was in New Delhi for forced labor stuff. And then I was in Calcutta for sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. So I've seen the hard, I've really seen like the ugly side, that every country has, right? We all do. Canada, the United States, like India is not the only country that has this issue. But I've also seen like the absolute beauty of India. I actually wanted to move there after I went the second time, even on that trip, going and seeing what I saw. I wanted to move to India. I came back and I told my parents, and they're like, "Are you like
crazy?
India now?" Yeah,
Are you out of your mind?
I'm like, I love it. And it was the people. Like, I love the people. I love the food. Like, I could eat Indian food almost not every day, but most days. I love Indian food. But it's such a teacher. India will, if you allow it, it will teach you. And I was reading the Gita while I was there the first time as well. I was doing that through my university at the time. I have a degree in religious studies, which not a lot of people know that about me, but I do. Yeah. So I was reading the Gita, while I was there, which was really eye-opening. And I saw India through a different lens than if I were to just obviously go there and, kind of just go travel around. So anyways, when you're going to go, you let me know. I will give you some tips. Maybe I'll even come with you. Who knows?
Yeah, honestly, that's sort of like, it's on my bucket list. Specifically, I want to backpack through India and I want to see. And my mom's from India. My grandma is from India. We just never went to India to really see, like you said, for it to be a teacher and for it to really, for me to really experience everything that's there. So there's a lot there emotionally, and I want to see my own. Like, I've traveled to so many different countries, but I think I want to explore my own backyard and see where the roots are from and where we come from and all of that. So it'll be a special trip. It's not on the girls' trip yet. We had I remember when we started the company, we had India on there, and right before when we were planning it, COVID hit. But let's see, hopefully one day we can add that destination. But yeah, the girls' trip is super exciting. It's my baby, I guess I can say. It's a part of my business and something that I truly love doing, that brings me so much love and support and community. And a big part of my life is traveling for those reasons, is to experience something new, to keep up with feeling like there's more to this life and there's more to this world. And travel does that for me. It keeps me grounded, when I'm too busy or too stuck on something. It allows me to kind of settle down, and I invest in it. It's an investment,
I love it. Okay. Well, those listening who are interested in checking out the girls' trip, where are you guys traveling to this year? What's the lineup?
So we're coming to you. In November, we're in Costa Rica. In the summer, we're doing a local Canadian retreat, which we've never done before. And in 2024 is really where we're honing down in a lot of trips. We go to Colombia at the beginning of the year. We go to Bali at the end near the fall. Then we go back to Costa Rica. And then we're probably going to add maybe another 2 new destinations in 2024.
I love it. I love it. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is a good way to write off the trip as personal development. There's ways to
totally
do that, right? Like we just shared how much learning traveling teaches you. So it is 100% an investment in yourself, which makes it a write-off for your business. So definitely make sure you get in touch with Huda. You have seen, if you're watching, her handles are here. I'm going to link everything up in the show notes as well. And be sure to follow and connect. She's doing amazing things. And Huda, I'm just so grateful for you to be here today. Before I let you go, because you're on the Freedom CEO podcast for good reason, I need to ask you to close out. When you think of being the CEO of your own life, the chief decision maker over your own life, how for you has that brought you freedom?
Given me the time to chase my dreams and not let anyone tell me otherwise.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. Really, really appreciate it. And I know we're going to have you back at some point because there's so much more to be able to unpack and all the good stuff.
I'm so grateful to be here, Shae. You're doing an incredible job. And I'm really fortunate and grateful that I get to be one of the first few episodes of this incredibly amazing, successful podcast that you'll have.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shae and Huda and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.